Coming up on Avant Technology Insights with Ken Presti.
When you have the opportunity to upgrade your platform, you're upgrading the stakes of what your business can do.
We're going to be talking about unified communications as a service, or as we regular folk in the tech industry might call it, UCaaS. UCaaS is where the capabilities of telephones, text, chat, and a host of other collaboration applications come together as the glue between your company and the customer. The days of the old-fashioned PBX are numbered, and some people would say I'm being too nice to the private branch exchange by giving it any credit at all for still breathing. They're still out there, but they are fewer and farther in between. In this podcast, we're going to take a look at how enterprises can leverage UCaaS towards tighter customer relationships, increased efficiency, and higher sales. As always, we'll be looking at the challenges as well. Welcome to Avant Technology Insights. I'm your host, Ken Presti. The link between solving business challenges and cutting-edge technologies has become tighter and more complex than ever before. In this podcast series from Avant Research and Analytics, we help enterprise decision makers sort through the business case, the value, the challenges, and ultimately the bottom line of technology adoption. So listen to us at your desktop, take us in the car, tune in from the commuter train, or download us at the gate. You'll find us on Apple, Spotify, and Google, as well as in 19 countries across the globe. My guest today has 10 years of experience as a high-performance sales leader within the telecommunications industry. He's recognized for his commitment to customer success, helping to ensure more than 2 billion connections each day through cloud technology. He prides himself on his consultative and strategic approach to technical sales that can help to fuel his customers' businesses into the future. He's passionate about a variety of technologies, including unified communications as a service. He's a regional vice president of channel sales at Mitel and joins us here today on Avant Technology Insights with Ken Presti. I want to welcome Jim McGarry. Jim McGarry, I'd like to welcome you to the show. Thanks for joining us here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Ken. Really looking forward to it. And it seems like the podcast is off to a raving success thus far.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say that. We appreciate that here at Avant. So our topic today is on UCaaS. And the first thought that comes to my mind is that, PBXs have been around for such a long time. And now we see the beginning of the end of the PBX. And some people will say it's even further along than that. What primarily is driving the move away from the PBX and towards UCaaS?
Yeah, so great question. And really, ultimately, that's the $1 million question. We could spend all the time on this podcast talking specifically about that. And really, when we look at it, when we see the UCaaS market and the changing PBX market to UCaaS, I think regardless of which way that customers choose to have their communications and collaboration delivered to them, really what everyone is focusing on and what every customer is focusing on is really evolving the customer experience. And I know customer experience in our industry has really become a buzzword, so to speak, over the last couple of years. But it's really true. I mean, if you look at the way that customers want to interact with the companies that they do business with, that is an ever-changing environment, right? From when we started adding SMS to video to email and even into the social aspect, more and more customers want the communications to be in whichever way they choose to communicate. And when you're an organization like Mitel or other UCaaS providers out there, you have to be able to provide that to those customers. Otherwise, they're going to go on down the road. And really, so that primarily that shift, the reason why it's happened is because of that customer experience. And when you move to a cloud architecture, when you move to a UCaaS product, ultimately what that allows you to do is as that environment and as those industries continue to change and continue to drive that demand, we are able to adapt and adjust to that demand by quickly adding features and functionality into the platform itself.
And how do you see features evolving? I've been told that, one company will come up with new features and that'll be the next great thing. And then everyone else will begin to do that too. And then it's commoditized. It strikes me that people in the UCaaS space, people who are developing these types of services, have to move very quickly based on kind of the whims of the market and based on what other people are doing. While certainly that's something that, is par for the course in the IT space, how is that elevated, if at all, in the UCAS space itself?
Yeah, great point, Ken. And we call it agile development, right? You have to be able to adjust, see what's coming, and be able to have the R&D and the engineers available to be able to write that code. You're absolutely right. When we look at features and functionality, a lot of the same features and functionality that other providers, we kind of all have very, very similar ways of doing things. But ultimately, this is where the ownership of the platform really becomes important, because as interactions with the client and with the customer experience continue to change, and as those features get more ingrained into the applications and into the applications that customers use every single day, the ability to own your own platform and be able to write those changes and not hit any roadblocks is really what affords us the capability to do that.
So, if I'm an enterprise decision maker, I mean, I'm used to buying things probably based on those types of technical differentiators that I'm most comfortable with. Now, here's a situation where, one company comes up with something and everyone else does too. And I get the point that you made about owning your own platform. But what should I be looking at as a buyer to determine what the differentiators are among the various players?
So to me, it's very much of a personal decision for a lot of the buyers that are out there, and for our trusted advisors out there. This is where the education in the platforms and the products become vitally important, because we strongly believe that in order for you to say that you can unify communications, you truly have to do that, meaning that you have to be involved inside of the business process. You have to be ingrained into the applications that customers are using every single day to run their business. And as enterprise decision makers are looking more and more at these products and these services that can facilitate collaborations and a better customer experience, it should be at the top of their list to make sure that they're getting those integration points with their UCaaS manufacturer and with their UCaaS provider, to be able to tie in a completely different level of experience for them.
Are there any specific verticals in which UCAS is particularly well suited? I mean, if you're in this kind of business, you really need to go to UCAS ASAP.
Yeah, so I think purely there's a lot of folks out there from a cost perspective, from a administrative perspective, have really seen a lot of use cases in retail, and we couldn't agree more. We can tie a lot of benefits to a retail organization, putting whether it's putting phones or whether it's putting soft phones, but communication devices out at the edge at those stores with little to no maintenance on them, and then obviously home running all of that back to be able to 4-digit dial to a corporate office. That's a great segment for us. Sales and professional organizations, right? You look at your sellers out there in the marketplace, and you want them to be nimble and agile. And the last thing that most salespeople want to do is update Salesforce.com every single day. So when you can empower them with tools that will update it for them based on the individuals that they've called, based on maybe what trends and market data may already be provided inside of Salesforce, and tie that into collaboration, that is a really valuable piece of information for professional and sales type organizations to have. We run the gamut of organizations who continue to deploy UCAS. One of our largest wins this last year was one of the largest school districts here in Texas, that is continuing to evolve and continuing to change and move that direction.
So the people who are going to be using UCAS. So let's say I just went in and I invested some money and I've got my UCAS up and running. Now I've got to get my people up and running. They're not used to this necessarily, or some of them might and some might not. What do I need to do? What's it take to train them, and what does it take to get them away from the unified notion that everything that comes in, from the customer is going to be typically a phone call? That requires a change of mentality on their part, I would think.
Man, this is a great question. And for all of the listeners out there, this is unscripted completely. So I love that Ken is taking it down this route because he knows exactly the hot buttons and where to talk about. You are a subject matter expert, sir. So I appreciate that.
You're too kind. Thank you.
So with that, I would say, it's interesting. Mitel's been in the PBX space and selling communications for the last 45 plus years at this point. And early on, when we sold PBXs, a very, very stringent requirement of our customers was to really focus on on-site training. I'm sure there's a lot of head nods going out there from people who are familiar with that. And in this UCaaS world, um, while there is so much of the features and functionality that is intuitive, that is, dare I say, iPhone like, right? It doesn't have an instruction manual to do it. There's a lot of it that makes sense and it's intuitive and easy. There is still a level of training in order to really fully utilize what's going on underneath the hood of that UCaaS platform and really make it work for you, because that's what we want it to do, right? We want to make it sing. So training is of the utmost importance to us. And, myself, and I know there's other vendors out there as well who can provide that level of training whether we're going with a partner to go on site to have them assist to do it, to simple, easy to use, small, digestible content videos that are online and made accessible at the user's fingertips to be able to allow them to go access the training material that they need on demand. But make no mistake, the UCaaS world out there, and for our users out there, we have to make sure we continue to stress the availability of training, the importance and necessity of training, because when you're integrating such cool technology into your business, you want to make sure that your people know how to use it. And we give them the freedom and the accessibility to be able to do it now more than ever. But sometimes a lot of them can get super busy and not necessarily find the time to do it. And they just manage along without necessarily fully utilizing the platform or the product.
That's very common in technology in general, and it's one of those things that the engineers go crazy over because they spend a lot of time and effort designing these functionalities in, and people either don't have the time or the inclination to learn how to use them.
Yeah,
So,
the easier we
yeah.
make things, it seems like the more we forget to maybe test it out for a full test drive, see what it can do.
So the same question from the other side of the telescope. Okay, you've got your people trained. Now you've got to get your customers used to the idea that they don't have to dial that 800 number to get a hold of your people. How do you reach out to them so that they actually know that there are other options out there for them?
Yeah, so this is a great point as well. So, we strongly believe that every engagement needs some layer of implementation assistance, right? Some layer of project management. And one of the most important pieces that we have found during a customer's life cycle and implementation process is really what we call the handoff to support. So this is after your day one of go live. You spend all this time with a project manager making sure everything is exactly as you see fit. But the next transition is, how do you transition that customer over to a support mechanism, making sure that they understand where they need to go inside of our portal for support, how they can open a ticket via email or chat or phone call, or even as something as simple as pressing the help button that we provide directly on their phones. With single one-touch access, a customer of any type, an administrator, just a regular end user, can tap that button and be directed immediately into our support center for any assistance that might be needed. So that transition model from getting them from project management to support is vitally important. And it's a responsibility of our project managers to do that warm handoff to the individuals that we call customer success managers and support, so that everyone knows exactly where that chain of command needs to go as they continue to evolve in their product.
Okay, let's take a slightly more technical bend on this
Sure.
now. If I am an enterprise decision maker and I'm thinking about moving to UCAS, here's what scares me. My telephone system is really hugely important.
Mhm.
And if it goes down, I've got a serious problem on my hands and it's going to be very expensive. And there's probably going to be a lot of people above me in the food chain who want to know why I didn't do this smoothly. So I may have some reluctance to move in this direction at the beginning, but also the thought that comes on after that is that if I stick with old technology over the long haul, eventually that's going to bite me as well.
Right.
So, if I do it, I run a risk. If I don't do it, I run a risk. Help me unpack that internal conflict and how should I look at it as a buyer?
Yeah, so that is the most common conversation that we see every day, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
believe
the,
that.
the PBX is still running; it's business as usual, and we're okay, right? Why do I need to make this change? The first layer that I always peel back with our customers is it really goes back to that experience of what do your customers expect from you, right? If I called one of your customers today, would they be happy or would they be satisfied from the experience that they are getting from you as an organization? And there's a lot of times when you ask that question or you unpack that with them, you get a lot of like, I don't know, or I think they would be happy, but I guess I don't know, right? People start thinking about that customer experience differently, and when you engage with them, to be able to say, well, what if, right? They could reach out to you on social, or what if you wanted to be able to add SMS messaging into that? These are all things that are available to you from a cloud perspective when you're really focused on that customer experience. And a lot of times, either A, you're going to spend a heck of a lot of money to upgrade your PBX to do that, or B, your PBX hasn't evolved to provide that capability inside of a feature set to be able to do it. Um, so once we turn the conversation to get them to focus on their customer's experience, that really starts making or helping them understand why I'm level setting, to why I'm actually sitting across the table from someone like myself to be able to have that conversation. The next part is, obviously when you talk about UCaaS, when you talk about cloud, when you talk about anything that involves internet, you always have to be prepared for that what if scenario. That no matter how well the trusted advisors out there plan a network topography and design, if something fails, if that what if scenario where they lose that access uh, to their internet. And in our world, it's all about that conversation of that contingency planning to actually be able to build that scenario. When you had the PBX of old, customers will tell you that, and they'll remember the times where their PRIs went down, or we called it backhoe fade for the longest time, right? There's construction going on in the area, and they took the entire pop down, or whatever it might be, a fiber cut. Um, the ability to walk them through and help them understand the conversation that says, when you're moved to the cloud, when you're moved to a UCaaS platform, those calls are still transacting inside of the data center, right? We're still getting all of those calls. It's just, where are we routing them to? So making sure with training and with the proper project management and planning that goes along with that, we're able to now say, let's make sure that we're routing to a secondary location, or let's make sure that we're on the fly routing to individuals' mobile devices, or posting up on our website that we might be experiencing an issue, or maybe making that completely blind to somebody, that they don't even see that issue at all. So those are the kind of conversations that, when I hear that messaging coming from the other side, it's oftentimes maybe the things that they haven't thought about, instead of just looking at it as a pure dial tone play.
So one of the things that I've always been familiar with in the telephony space is this whole notion of five nines, 99.999%. And then we started going into VoIP, voice over IP, and five nines kind of went out the window. Based on what you told me just now, how close do you think you can get to five nines in that old fashioned context?
I think when this is the unicorn that every single UCAS provider in the world is chasing, right? How do we get to that five nines and above from an uptime perspective, while still providing the service, the features, and the functionality that our customers expect? And really, the way that I see doing it is by more and more partnering with the larger data center players that exist today, the biggest in the world, right? And you can't have that conversation without talking about Google and without talking about Amazon. And the resources that those providers from a data center perspective give us, in way of technology and a way of active electronics that keep the systems up and running, with all kinds of points of presence from every single carrier in the world, from multi directions into those facilities. That's really where the business is headed. That is table stakes business now, to be able to partner with the Googles and the Amazons of the world to tie in the resiliency and the redundancy and scalability of what they have built today. So leveraging the use of those platforms to just make a that much better collaboration and UCaaS experience for our customers.
So does that mean you do product road mapping with them in terms of what they can support and what you can do?
Yeah, so when you look at Mitel and our relationship with what we're doing with GCP and Google, absolutely, Google engineers and Google network engineers are part of our global cloud operations team. They are absolutely at the table with us. They are just as invested as we are into a successful rollout and a successful stable platform.
Okay, so let me ask you my devil's advocate question. No
Yeah.
matter what we do in the tech space, something can eventually go wrong. I mean, no matter how hard we try, there's always going to be some sort of hiccup of some sort. When things go wrong in the UCaaS space, maybe it's in the migration, maybe it's during the operational phase once everything is up and running, but when things go wrong, where do you think they are most likely to go wrong? And from the standpoint of the enterprise decision maker, what should I be prepared for, and what should I do about that?
Yeah, so this is great because when we have those conversations, right? We often talk about how easy it is to roll out and install a UCaaS platform, when in all actuality, it is a very complicated process to still be able to do all of those things. We've just gotten really good at it and simplifying and making it easy. Sometimes during the demonstration and the sales process, we talk about how easy it is and how quickly we can get customers turned up. But we also see scenarios where we have customers that are wanting to port their numbers over from one carrier to another, and often that can be the longest delayed part of the cycle, right? From number porting capabilities to get them from one carrier back over to us. Sometimes that's the longest tent pole in that tent. So a lot of times it's upfront in the project management phase to making sure, and that's really where our responsibility comes in, to guide them through that process so that we're trying to get over all of those hurdles as early on in that process as we can, and really level setting those expectations of, hey, we want to get you active as soon as we possibly can, but sometimes we're at the bane of the existing carrier of when they release those numbers to us.
Okay, so we've been fortunate enough to hit some of the key points that you have with your customers and your prospects in the midst of all this. If there was one particular thing that you would want to call out to the enterprise decision maker and say, this is something that is most frequently understood, or I'm sorry, most frequently misunderstood about UCAS, and this is the key point that we would like to get clarified. What might that be?
Yeah, so I actually think about this one a lot, and it really ties in well to what we've talked about the rest of the conversation. When you have the opportunity to upgrade your platform, you're upgrading the stakes of what your business can do. The worst case scenario for us coming in to bring in to replace a PBX with a UCaaS platform and make it act and operate just like a PBX, right? Let's throw that out the window. This isn't just about getting dial tone anymore. This is about the collaboration. This is about the empowerment of your mobile users. And most importantly, this is about changing the conversation in the way that your customers connect with you every single day. This is your brand building. So that's probably the biggest piece that I would say that we want decision makers at the enterprise level, at every single level, and the trusted advisors out there to really be asking of their customers.
Excellent. Jim McGarry of Mitel, thanks so much for joining us on the show. You've brought a lot of clarity to the UCAS space for us today, and we thank you very much for that.
Anytime, Ken. Happy to do it.
Excellent. You've been listening to Avant Technology Insights with Ken Presti, featuring information and opinions on how key technologies can be leveraged to solve business problems. Avant Technology Insights is a service of Avant Communications, an IT decision-making platform for next-generation technologies. All opinions expressed are those of the guests and the host. For more information, please visit www.goavant.net. That's www.goav as in victory, ant.net. For Avant Research and Analytics, this is Ken Presti.